Hey guys, this is Justin. It's Sunday, March 30th, 2014, and this is Red Pages Podcast. I usually put a funny, in quotes, segment here, but I wanted to let you know that unlike our normal episode policy, this episode with our special guest Edmund McMillen is tagged explicit, so if you are a child, easily offended, or both, please turn off your podcast listen machine, and we will be back to our normal, wholesome family values again next week. Thanks. It is March 30th, Sunday, 2014, and I'm Justin.
I'm Gord.
And I'm Paul.
And we have a special guest with us this week. Special guest, would you like to tell the world who you are?
My name is Edmund McMillen. I don't like saying my name. I don't know how you guys feel about saying your name, but my name just sounds like not a good name to me when I say it. When other people say it, it sounds fine, but when I say it, it sounds like I can't even say my own name. But I made a game called Super Meat Boy, and The Binding of Isaac, and a bunch of other games that not many people know about.
Well, we know about them, certainly.
Yep.
But we can talk with you all about them in the sort of interviewee section of the podcast, which comes up after our more general segments.
Bring it on.
All right, so our first segment is the Sweet Haps section, where we talk about fun stuff that we've done over the past week. So does anybody want to lead with something especially interesting that they did? Like maybe falling asleep on a balcony?
Somebody who did that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm sure that you don't know. Okay.
We discovered the Japanese art of watching flowers under the sun with alcohol.
Oh, Maggie's here. Forgot to say that.
I forgot how to say my name.
Yeah, you're not usually here, so.
I'll think so.
Yep.
So,
it's totally socially acceptable just to start drinking at noon.
I disagree, but apparently Japanese culture is very different from what we have here.
Yep.
So did anybody actually do anything interesting this week, other than me?
I got a haircut.
Oh, sorry. You guys are riveting. You lead the most interesting lives of any people on the planet. This is why this is the worst episode of the podcast. As is every episode, the worst episode.
But which one's the best?
Episode 0.
It's true. We're never going to air that one.
Yeah, but they could, listeners, if you are listening to this on the website, through clever URL manipulation, you may be able to find episode 0. That's a hint. Well, then I guess I'll just talk about what I did. Unless, Ed, do you want to... did you do anything super exciting this week that you would like to lead with? Because our others are boring.
I worked. I worked all week. And then yesterday, I played Magic and Cards Against Humanity and Time's Up with friends.
Cool. Paul, you love Magic. Maybe you know something about that.
I do love Magic, and I also play Cards Against Humanity. I did play Magic this week, though.
How far are you from Santa Cruz, California?
About 3,000 miles, I want to say.
Are you familiar with cube drafts?
Yes, I love
Yes.
I have a power cube.
Oh, wow.
Legit power cube that we play every Saturday. And last night it was pretty much chaos because a lot of people flaked, and my wife had to jump in, and she hated every second of it. She knows how to play Magic, but she's unfamiliar with the cube, so I just basically threw her into the most difficult format ever designed, and she hated every second of it, and left shortly into the first
Understandably.
game. Yeah.
Okay, as somebody who knows the rules of Magic barely and nothing else, I've seen a actual literal cube constructed of Magic cards. Does that have anything to do with this?
You mean a physical cube?
Yes, it was a cube that had been very
Yeah.
carefully constructed out of magic cards.
That sounds
put together.
fun. Sounds like a fun thing to do with 6 to 8 people on the weekend is build a physical cube shape out of magic cards. But no, this is more along the lines of a very meticulously constructed format where you basically have a set that is composed of the most powerful magic cards ever printed that all work together really, really, really well.
Okay.
And you draft it.
Yep.
Okay.
I've been working on a popper cube for a while of just the best commons.
Yeah, that I'm sure it's quite awesome as well. I'm sure Lightning Bolt and Dark Ritual are pretty high picks.
Actually, Black is by far one of the strongest due to how many Spectre effects are in it.
Oh yeah, him. Well, is him? Do you count him as an uncommon or a common?
Him was printed common at one point, wasn't it?
I don't know because we're totally going ultra nerd here. No one else has any clue what we're talking about.
Yeah, it was
printed.
It was printed at common. I count it.
It was? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was one of those odd sets where it kind of didn't. There were 9 cards in a pack and. Yeah, right, guys. 9 cards.
My personal favorite drafting method is the wacky draft. You throw in some unhinged.
There's a format called Backdraft, where you draft a set and you're trying to draft the worst possible cards, so you make the worst pool possible.
Yeah.
Then you give the pool to somebody else, right? And they have to try to build a deck with the crappy cards that you've drafted that have no synergy. And then you get a point for every time that you win, and then you get a point for every time they lose. And it's a pretty fun format too.
So I guess this is what it feels like for you guys when I talk about some weird thing that I read that no one else is interested in.
Or World of Warcraft.
No, you at least you've played World of Warcraft, so you have some context for what I'm talking about.
You watched me play Magic. That sort of
That's
counts.
true. I have played Magic in the very distant past.
Haven't we all?
Very briefly. I think I own a whole 2 or 3 Magic cards.
You own that giant Chaos Orb?
No, it's vanished. I don't know where it went.
No.
I was really sad because that was a cool thing.
That is a cool thing.
I own a Gazban Ogre.
Oh yeah.
Which I got as a promotional from something.
Here, Justin, this is what I'll do. Since you lost your Chaos Orb, I'll mail you a copy of Chaos Confetti, and that's going to be pretty close.
Okay, and I have some weird artifact that I found in a comic book store in a plastic card protector between 2 magazines. And it said, did you find this card? Please go to cardsinthewild.com and record where you found it. And it was a Where's George, but for Magic cards, and it doesn't exist anymore. And I also didn't bother to record it because I didn't care about Magic. But I've still got that card somewhere. It was just a random rare artifact that I don't remember the name of and was worth maybe 10 cents.
Black Lotus.
Yep.
Yeah. Got it.
He immediately lit it on fire.
Yeah. I
We,
think I have it around here. I can find it maybe sometime in the middle of this episode.
We brought all of our Magic cards, not all of them, most of our Magic cards to Japan, but we haven't played yet.
Yeah, fun fact, my cube is, I'd say a good 50% composed of cards that were traded from fans. I wanted to build a cube, but I didn't want to be I'll just buy all the cards I need. I wanted it to be more of an adventure. So I was okay, I'm trying to build a cube. If you just send me your old cards, and I'll send you a sketch, a signed custom sketch or whatever. And people sent me shitloads of cards, and I was actually able to make the majority of the cube that way. That was awesome. Of course, not
I found
crazy stuff, but
I found the card. It is World Slayer.
That's actually a pretty fun card.
Yep. It was posted to the Cards in the Wild forum on December 22nd, 2003. And it has sat on a shelf in my house probably since a couple days after that.
Well, that was the last card to complete their entire experience. You you held them back.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. And that domain is just gone now, so you can't even record it. It has a couple. Yeah, I have in the past tried to go and say, hey, I found this card a really long time ago. See, like, oh, it just took that long for somebody to find it, of course.
Send them a letter in post.
Yep. So, I did stuff this week. I went to see, what's it called? Troilus and Cressida. The Shakespeare adaptation of the Trojan War. Dead silence. See, this is what I meant. This is what I meant.
I had my microphone muted so that I could eat this apple.
So yeah, it was an incredibly unflattering portrayal of Achilles, who just came off as their angle was all of the costumes were made of cardboard, and so and Achilles and Achilles' lover were both played by women, so it was just cardboard lesbian Achilles, which was a new direction for Shakespeare. Yeah, it was unflattering. Achilles came off as a jerk. I went to see Don Giovanni today, Mozart's famous opera, and that was a really weird production as well. That's what I did this week. I played a lot of video games too, but we'll talk about those later. Yeah, see, I got something. Okay, go for it.
Perfect.
See, I'll say like I did something, and then everybody is silent, and then no one else has done anything this week, and we go to the next segment, which is what we're gonna do right now, guys. We're moving on.
Excellent.
All right, this is a segment that let's see if somebody has something for this segment this week. The book segment. Sweet books. What have you guys read over the past week?
Homeland.
Oh, you read Homeland. Okay.
Well, I'm having it read to me by Will Wheaton.
That counts.
In the new Humble Bundle, which I think might still be up.
I think it's still up.
Sweet.
Tell us about Homeland.
It's good. It's the sequel to Little Brother, which I feel like is a very important book that should be in every high school English curriculum.
Neil Gaiman agrees with you.
Sweet. I'm glad. It's a young adult 1984 story that's more action-y. And it also explains a lot of complex technical... what's the word that I'm looking for? Methods?
Network solutions?
Yeah. In a way for, to get kids excited about it, because it's not way over their heads. One of the things that the main character does is makes his own darknet by connecting everyone's new wireless Xbox together into a new internet. That was pretty cool. Anyways, this is a sequel to that, and
okay,
yeah.
So I read Little Brother, and I'm not sure where he could go with a sequel that would not just be more of the same. So what is the book about?
So far, it's what you would expect, I suppose.
Okay.
Maybe more explosions.
Okay.
There's a returning villain, and he's...
Is it the villain from the last book? The only villain that was in the last book?
Was there only the one?
Yeah, there was just that one woman.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep. Okay. Anything else?
Not too far into it, but yeah, it's easily as enjoyable as Little Brother.
Okay, maybe I will look that up. You can get that on Cory Doctorow's website, right?
Yep.
He just has all the PDFs up.
Craphound.com or currently on humblemundle.com.
Right. How is Will Wheaton's performance?
It's pretty funny. There's the part where he's reading for Will Wheaton, the character in Homeland.
Okay. Does Will Wheaton, the character in Homeland, just talk about his dog farting all the time, like the real Will Wheaton?
No, he talks about how awesome he is. Well, no, the main character talks about how awesome he is, and Will Wheaton does that to his character.
Okay. Does he do the voice for his character?
Yep.
As himself? Okay. All right. Has anybody else read a book this week? Or, if you weren't on the podcast last week, have you read a book ever that you want to talk about?
I actually did read, or I'm in the process of reading a book right now.
Is it Game of Thrones?
No, it's not. It's something completely new. It's called The Drama of the Gifted Child.
Okay.
Which is totally like a sociology, psychology, book thing about, people who have feelings of emptiness and alienation because of weird childhood experience.
Okay. Was there like a particularly good story in that book that you want to share, or is it just like a more sciencey list of symptoms or whatever?
No, I mean it's just more talking through a lot of this stuff. It's very academic.
Oh, so it's something that I might actually read, right?
It is something that you might read if you're more into psychology.
Okay. We all know that our listeners who are into psychology are probably also listening to the Psychomedia podcast, our rivals, the Psychomedia podcast. The Psychology Today, where every other week our friends over there talk about psychology. This most recent episode was about hair and how different people interpret haircuts. Adam, do you read anything ever? Have you ever read a book ever?
I have read.
That you'd like to talk about?
I have read very few. I'm not much of a reader. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes it's a pain in the ass. I also have a really, really hard time reading fiction. The only things I can usually read are like biography, autobiography type, like real stuff that I can somehow attach to. Like if it's fantasy, my brain tends to like just wander off, and I'll be reading the words, but I'll just like read a whole chapter and have no idea what I read. But I will be actively reading, but thinking about something else.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of people have the opposite thing where they like. If it's something real, then they'll just zone out, but they're really into
I don't know what it is. I think the most like fantasy stuff it'll probably inspire me, and I'll start thinking of, wouldn't it be cool if I did this or wrote about this or whatever else, and it's just, and my brain will just split into two, and one of them I won't be really paying attention to anything, or anything at all. But I read a lot of random stuff. I am a subscriber of Jack Chick's work. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Have you heard?
Guys,
they're called Chick Tracts.
Yep.
Bible tracts.
Okay, that is familiar.
They are making a movie.
You find in random places.
Yes.
It's like evangelistic Christian insanity. I eat it up. It's my bread and butter, and I've been trying really hard to like get like some sort of signed art, like sketch of something by Jack, and I've like signed up with all these different email accounts and emailing them and directly and saying I'm a Christian and Jack Chick has helped me so much, and all I want is just a sketch of his. And then I think they eventually catch on and then they stop responding. But the last one I read was about how Muslims are going to hell. So there's that.
Yeah.
There's that.
Well, that makes sense. They are not followers of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
This
year of our Lord.
Catholics also burning in hell. Gays. I mean, any sinner, right?
Okay.
But the great thing is I read one recently where this is like a classic. It's called Lisa. If you want to look it up online because you can. Chick Tracts Lisa.
We can put a link to it in the show notes.
It's about this guy who is addicted to pornography and whores out his daughter to his friends, and she eventually gets AIDS and dies, right?
Wow, I'm looking at this and it's amazing.
Oh my god.
But the thing at the end that you find out, right before the end, is Lisa, his daughter, is like 5 years old.
Yeah.
And he, I believe he goes to heaven. Like, it's like he gets... I believe these are mostly, like, given to prisoners who've done really horrible, awful things to show them that even if you've done horrible, awful things, you just have to get down on your knees and put your hands together and say, Jesus, and then, like, you don't burn in hell for eternity for what you've done. But the thing is everybody else in the book that is completely innocent but isn't Christian, they die and they burn in hell. Like, that's usually the conclusion.
This is amazing.
Yeah. They're all
Okay, we'll put a link to this in the show notes for sure.
A classic for most nerds would be one called Dark Dungeons. It's about D&D. It's a classic. It's now in print again, so you can actually buy copies. Dark Dungeons. It takes D&D extremely literally, and his interpretation of D&D is quite literally like you go in, you get real powers, and you cast spells on your father, so he buys you more D&D books. It's good, and you burn in hell.
That sounds realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, with my experience of D&D, that's just what it's like. So maybe he's onto something.
You die in D&D, die in real life.
Is that the one where the girl who's playing a spellcaster goes to sacrifice babies in the forest?
She doesn't. There haven't been much sacrificing of babies, surprisingly, but
It's a real shame.
yeah, they're the whole D&D aspect in the 80s when things got really crazy with D&D and Jack Chick started pushing it. It had to do with this woman who was an ex-doctor, and she got actually fired because she was recommending people go home and pray in order to feel healthier, and she lost her license. But then what she did was she met up with this woman who claimed to be a witch in some like prominent coven that worshipped the devil that was actually sent to destroy this woman. They befriended each other. And they wrote a bunch of books, and one of them was called They Came to Set the Captives Free, which is something to look up to. And it's complete insanity, and it's written from the perspective of, like, it's 100% serious, all factual events. This is all documented, and they stand by it, that these things all really happened. And it's the most insane stuff ever, but she became, like, Jack Chick's, like, right-hand man, woman type deal when it came to anything occult-wise, because she had this witch, ex-witch, turned Christian, who's now on her side, who's giving her all the secret information on exactly, like, how you get into worshipping the devil and the powers that he grants you. It's really
Wow.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Apparently there's a Kickstarter for a Dark Dungeons movie that successfully funded.
They're playing it off as serious, and they have support from.
Yeah, I was just reading this, and I was like, is this a parody? Like, I think that I think this is like a joke, and they've successfully fooled the Jack Chick Industries or whatever into thinking they're serious.
Those tracks make millions of dollars for him a year. Like, he's an incredibly wealthy old man. A lot of people think he's dead because he's really old. Like, he's like in his late 90s, I think, at this point, and no one knows a lot of, like, it's very fuzzy. There's a documentary about him. It's pretty good, but he's kind of an enigma, and no one really knows, his backstory completely.
So he's like the Howard Hughes of crazy Christian comics.
Yeah, I just know that they've got sketches up to wazoo because he draws most of the comics, and
apparently his stuff is in the Smithsonian.
Really? Damn.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm not getting a copy.
It's worth a lot of money.
They beat me to it.
Okay. So I don't think I've actually read anything this week, because I went to see a bunch of plays instead of reading a bunch of plays. So you guys can skip me, I guess. I have nothing exciting or interesting to say.
Well, how
just in general. Yeah, I know, right? Normally I'm the only one who's had something to read. So if nobody has anything else to talk about, we can move on to the video games segment.
I read...
oh, right. I forget. See, Maggie, you need to talk more so that I remember that you're here.
I've actually gone and had a shower and come back in this time, so I'm doing pretty good.
Have you actually?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ninja. I read my favorite manga, Yatsuba, again, and then I tried reading it in Japanese and got about a chapter in, and then I was like, nope.
What is that about?
It's about this crazy 4-year-old girl who lives with her adopted father and just gets into trouble. And it's really cute, and it always makes me laugh out loud, which is a lot to say because most books don't do that anymore. But for some reason, this manga does.
Is this little girl a robot?
No, but she has green hair, which is definitely a draw.
Does she pilot a robot?
No, there's no robot piloting.
Is her father's name Dr. Slump?
She's the mascot for 4chan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know who that is now. I can recognize that face.
Yeah, Yatsuba.
Does 4chan have official permission? Have they purchased the license to that character?
Probably not, because the reason she's the mascot is because Jen was the first place to make Yatsuba really popular by pirating the heck out of her.
Huh.
Okay. All right then. Now we can move to the next segment,
Yeah.
the video game segment. So what have you guys been playing over the past week? Any video games? Any other games?
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
Where are we talking about Oculus Rift?
No, here is fine. You've been playing with an Oculus Rift?
Nope.
You've been playing with Facebook.
Not been playing with an Oculus Rift.
Okay.
There was an article in which Notch, what's the word I'm looking for? Quit Oculus Rift. They were in talks to make a Minecraft Oculus Rift version. And when Oculus Rift was bought by Facebook, Notch rage quit very publicly and said,
Yeah.
I didn't chip in $10,000 to raise their Facebook buying profile.
Yeah. Did you see Cliff Blazinski wrote Notch a thing saying, "You're a pouty kid who's taking his ball and going home. Be a grown up about this."
No, but
that was pretty funny. Cliffy, I mean, he's kind of unfunny, but that was actually pretty funny. In
I
the
feel like
worst
he was-
ways possible.
Yeah. This is just super backhanded compliments. He was real funny, which is unusual.
Well, maybe going for serious.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the up-and-coming Team Meat Soculus Rift.
Yeah, me too. I want a chunk of that bazillions.
So you've been playing with not an Oculus Rift. Anything else?
Dwarf Fortress, some more Dwarf Fortress, Icewind Dale, which is developing and getting more interesting. And it's also really long. We've put hours and hours and hours into it.
Is this the main campaign or
Yeah.
fan stuff?
Main campaign
Okay.
for Icewind Dale.
Cool.
Just every time we get to the end of something, there's the beginning of something else. And it's expansive.
Does that game run on BioWare's engine, the Baldur's Gate
Yep.
engine?
Same engine. It doesn't. We also fired up Baldur's Gate, and Icewind Dale runs much more smoothly than Baldur's Gate. So I'm guessing.
It's also newer.
Yeah, okay, that'll do it. There are still some problems with the interface. If you alt-tab and you are the server, the game is just force-paused for everyone. Not for any reason, but just because, hey, that person's not paying attention. We're going to make it so that no one can play.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been playing some Neverwinter Nights, too, haven't we?
Yeah!
We have a campaign going on with our Canadian friend back home. It's the next best thing to attempting Dungeons & Dragons on Skype.
We did some of that recently. We should finish that campaign.
Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm convinced that campaign will never actually get to finish.
No, probably
And I
not.
hate it because I love my character.
Have you played, Gord, have you played Dragon Age?
Only about an hour or two on the Xbox.
Because, okay, there's your problem. The console port was garbage. Not game-ruiningly bad. But yeah, the Dragon Age Origins on the PC is just another one of those Neverwinter Nights, Baldur's Gate type games.
Oh, nice.
Multiplayer? No, not multiplayer. The new one has multiplayer, but it is not out yet.
Ooh.
But yeah, they specifically made it and marketed it as the spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate.
Oh, nice.
And it is one of my favorite PC RPGs, so you should check it out at some point, someday.
I don't know. Final Fantasy VII is now a PC RPG.
That
totally does not count.
I've also played a bunch of Hearthstone, getting more into ranked. I got down to rank 14, I think. I'm right at the end of rank 14.
Cool. I got a legendary in Hearthstone,
oh dang!
But it was a double.
You got the second.
I got a second King Mukla. It's just a roller coaster of emotions. from it's another pack. It's gonna be garbage. Oh my gosh, it's a legendary. Oh, it's an unusable card.
Oh, well, smash that for
400 dust. A quarter of another legendary.
Pulverize it.
Yeah.
I also tried out Adventure Mode in Dwarf Fortress, which is where you play as a single dude, and it's tick-based. So it's kind of like NetHack, where nothing happens until you act, and then everything acts by a multiplier of their speed. Mm-hmm. And you just walk around this world that is generated by your Dwarf Fortress game. And you can go and find your old fortress. Like, if you had a fortress going and all of your dwarves starved, or got overridden by goblins, or, as happened to me, overrun by 5 forgotten beasts. And a forgotten beast is this thing that is just generated out of all of the worst aspects of the most dangerous creatures. So I had a giant spider made of copper, which was very, very hard to damage at all, climb up out of the depths and web all of my dwarves, and then just start walking around smacking them and snapping their necks. The worst part of that, though, was that there were the dwarves that he didn't kill that had to just stay webbed, connected to the ceiling or wherever they lay for months and months until they starved to death and triggered the "your fortress has fallen" message so that I could start a new one.
Wow, that sucks for them. Also, dwarves can go for months without food?
Yep, apparently.
They actually hide some in their beards?
Of course.
These ones, at least 2 of them had broken spines, too. Broken spine, webbed, starving to death slowly. In fact, it was probably the lack of alcohol that did them.
Wait, what was the question?
Do you play Dwarf Fortress with any kind of visualizer?
Yes, because I'm a little baby.
Well, it's not. You're not a little baby. See, because I have wanted to play Dwarf Fortress for ages, and whenever I try, I just can't. Like, it's, oh my god, like, the visual learning curve is, like, completely insane, and I have no idea what I'm doing and why.
That's my issue too. I just listened to Gord's stories about it and kind of live vicariously.
I absolutely.
Yeah, Dwarf Fortress is like EVE Online. I like to hear about it, but I have no interest in ever starting.
There's something called the Lazy Noob Pack, which just makes it all playable. It's got, the first time you fire it up, it says, what graphical interface would you like? And choose from this list, and it'll be automatically applied.
Okay, I'm gonna take a note. It's actually one of the highest searches. Dwarf Fortress Lazy Noob Pack.
Yep. Paradis Extrant. Paradexis Errant. Paradexis Errant's Dwarf Fortress Starter Pack. Yeah.
Alright. So, I actually want to talk about what I've been playing to jump off of what you've been playing. But I was given all of the Dungeons & Dragons video games this week.
Whoa.
By somebody I know. And I started a campaign of Planescape Torment. Because I have heard that is the best Dungeons & Dragons game. And I wanted to have some experience with it before our upcoming guest. Not this week, not next week, but sometime next month. Chris Avalone will be on, and he made that game, and I wanted to have some experience so I could ask him about it. And it is pretty good. I spent maybe 3 hours wandering around the very, very starting zone, trying to figure out how to get out. But the fact that I didn't just quit in frustration is a testament to how compelling I found it.
Huh.
It was maybe 2 rooms, the starting zone, to just walk back and forth between, trying to figure out how in the world do I get out of this place that's filled with death-worshipping dudes.
I remember that too. That game is like dialogue up the butt.
Yeah, apparently it's very low combat focus. I did like that you could go, that the place was just filled with zombies, but they were all neutral because they were working for the guys that you were being imprisoned by. And you could just walk up to all of the different zombies and try to have conversations with them, which were really funny.
Yep.
and the skeletons, and you can ask the skeletons questions like, so, like, I get that you're a skeleton. Why are you wearing a smock? It's not like you really have anything to hide at this point. And you'd always get this the same response, just like the skeleton stares at you dumbly.
Yeah. There's one of them with a certain number carved into his head. That you can actually open
I found that one.
his chest.
Yeah, I got a sweet treasure from inside of his chest. I had some sort of monster with blades for fingers stabbed me a whole bunch, and it gave me an extra hit point.
Oh, yeah.
So I did that. I also played the new DLC for Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea Part 2.
Ooh.
And I had some mixed feelings. I have like a really, really strong emotional investment in the Bioshock series dating back from the first one when I played it, and it sort of blew my mind as to what you could do in a video game with narrative. And it's one of the few first-person shooter games that I will actually play. And I liked this one a lot because they included a new gameplay mode called 1998 mode. Because 1998 was the year that Thief came out. And so this particular DLC, if you play it in 1998 mode, they remove all of the weapons from the game. And you can only use stealth and distractions and non-lethal tactics to complete the entire campaign. And I did that, and it was really, really satisfying. And it kind of impressive because the Bioshock engine, being a first-person shooter, was not really built for a stealth game. So you get all sorts of weird things where you step in a puddle of water and every enemy in the entire building knows where you are. But it was still good. The opening sequence was really, really visually impressive, just walking around a fake version of Paris. Cool. And yeah, but at the same time, as much as I enjoyed it, it felt sort of weird because, like, Ken Levine also just fired 200 people and disbanded that studio. So, I don't know, it felt, the real life stuff sort of was bleeding into my playing of the game, which I had a season pass, so I just got it automatically. And then I played a lot of Diablo 3, because the expansion for that came out.
I hear that unruins the game.
Well, I know that's literally all that Paul has done for the past week.
Yeah, it's the only game that I've played. My friends have been like, hey, Paul, you want to go play some Counter-Strike with us? I'm like, nope, playing Diablo. Can't do it. Need more loot.
I saw you on Battle.net.
I saw you on Battle.net, too. You went and played Hearthstone, and I was playing Diablo.
Do you know if they add more depth to, like, the enemies in the expansion? Like, do you do more than just point and shoot, or, like, do they actually have a range of enemies where it requires you to fight them in different ways?
The bosses, a little bit, but most of the enemies are...
Well, they added they added a whole bunch of new affixes to the champion enemies that make it different.
No, but it's still
the bosses are hard, man.
No, but all the new affixes are really just, hey, these are some AoEs, get out of them or they will hurt you real bad. They don't drastically change the way that you look at combat. The new bosses are super hard in comparison to the base game, though.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I feel like what changes the way that you look at combat is not the enemies, but the new legendaries that they have. Because the new legendaries, almost all of them have unique affixes that you can't get anywhere but that legendary that fundamentally change the way that certain skills work.
Yeah.
So, right now I have a Demon Hunter where normally Vault is just like you tumble from one location to the other really fast, but I've got a combination of legendaries that makes it so that Vault knocks back all the enemies that I tumble through and stuns them, and I attack while I'm vaulting, and a Vault leaves a shadow clone behind that taunts enemies away from me. Cool. So I'm just sort of running a build based on this skill that otherwise I would be doing something completely different. And every time you get a new legendary, it sort of makes you reconsider what skills and you're using and how combat works for you.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's definitely a better game than it was a year ago. So, Edmund, what have you been playing? Anything? Or have you just been making games instead of playing them?
I've been making the last game I played game that wasn't Magic, video game wise. I played through the Towerfall co-op with my wife, which was quite awesome, and I wish it had more to it. And what, did I play something else? No, just my own stuff, just testing and all the bullshit that goes along with it. I basically have like 2 days open. It's like my weekend. On Fridays I do Friday Night Magic, and then on Saturdays we do, fun party game night. Here's
Okay. Oh, I remembered another game that I played, and it was called Spewer.
I played that.
Yeah. I did not finish it. It was part of the Basement Collection, which is a collection of games by some guy I've never heard of.
He's overrated, I can tell you that much.
Man, I was saving mine for the Edmund McMillen segment of the show.
The Edmund McMillen segment.
I did recently play Scapegoat 2.
Oh, I saw the trailer for that, and it was amazing.
Which is pretty. No, not that one. Which one are you talking about? There's 2 goat games that came out.
No, not Goat Simulator.
Okay,
The Double Fine trailer for Scapegoat 2, starring Tim Schafer, where he murders the dude who makes it and claims that he made the game.
Oh, actually, definitely.
Okay, you should go find it so that you could understand the glory of Tim Schafer. Tim Schafer's Scapegoat 2.
Yeah, but I did enjoy what I've played so far of Scapegoat 2. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think that the Goat Simulator game is out yet. I think it comes out in April 1st.
Okay. Early access, you can get a copy of it right now.
Okay. Oh, that reminds me. Going back to the Oculus Rift, did you see that the Frog Fractions 2 Kickstarter added a $2 billion stretch goal to buy Oculus back from Facebook? Yeah, I was like, they're so close. They can make it. I've got faith in them.
I feel like at this point Facebook is going to charge a lot more than $2 billion for it.
Yeah, I don't think that they're just wanting to make back their investment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe, okay, tell you what. We'll give them $2 billion and the rights to Frog Fractions.
Put about $2 billion into something that's exactly like the Oculus Rift, but better.
Man, Valve was working on that, and they just gave all of their research and development to Oculus Rift.
I don't
think they gave it to them.
Sony also has one.
Yeah, it's not a hard thing to just fund if you've got $2 billion.
Nintendo, do you remember the Virtual Boy? Let's talk.
Yeah. Did you apparently I think it was at GDC. Maybe this year? I think it was this year. Maybe it was Indiecade, the last Indiecade. But the Frog Fractions guy was giving out his business cards, and each business card had a single letter on it somewhere that wasn't part of it. And it turns out that every person who he gave a business card to had a different letter. And there was some weird arg going on with his business cards that nobody ever solved because they didn't manage to collect all the people he had given business cards to together.
Yeah, that'd be a hard one to put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently someone asked him about it, and he was just like, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you, and walked away. But there's also an arg going on with the Frog Fractions 2 Kickstarter that has some really weird rabbit holes that you can go down, involving bread and a game where you have to shave President Obama over and over again. A game where you have to shave Justin Bieber over and over again. And I think there's going to be a dead drop sometime next week on the Berkeley campus somewhere. That is the next stage.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I remember they had some to do some sort of weird cipher that involved the really strange programming language
Yeah, wasn't it something like with the ColecoVision games converted into text or something?
Yeah,
like the code?
something like that. Super weird.
Yeah, I don't know. People on the internet have a lot of time to solve puzzles like that.
Alright guys, I have to go to work, but it's been a pleasure joining you for this part of the show.
Alright, bye Maggie.
Alright, you can fangirl now, it's okay.
Seriously, it's really, really sweet to be here talking to Edmund McMillen. Binding of Isaac is one of my favorite games. It's horrifying and I love it. And it got me through a 12-hour plane ride to Japan, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the person next to me looked really, really upset.
Well, thank you very much. I have a feeling you'll like Rebirth.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm really stoked for that. It's gonna be good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're all. I don't know. Actually, Paul, did you play Binding of Isaac?
I did. I'm
Okay,
easily
good.
the worst player at it in the world. So, but
Everybody's the worst player in the beginning.
Yeah,
that's true.
All right, so we want to move into the interview segment, or does anybody want to talk about a video game? All right, 3, 2. Okay, we're done. All right, so before we get into the discussion, we want to start off with the questions from the listeners, or do we want to do those later?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. Other hosts, express a preference.
Yes.
I like the questions.
Okay.
I think the question will be good.
Ed, I gotta do everything around here, don't I?
I gave an
got the
opinion. I gave an opinion.
Okay. The first question comes from Michael Tweedale, which is a question for Ed. What are some things that have inspired you creatively? Any films/games that shaped you as a person and as a creator?
Yes. I would say the most crucial, influential things that art-wise, that I experienced as a child that kind of formed me to who I am would be accidentally renting The Toxic Avenger when I was 7.
Oh, man.
That was a big one. Seeing Evil Dead 2 when I was 8. Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 8. Being a big collector of Garbage Pail Kids when I was, probably about 7.
That makes a lot of sense.
Big fan of Ren and Stimpy, huge fan of Ren and Stimpy in the early 90s. And then I'd say I like just falling in love with music as a teenager and just being kind of obsessed with music. Nothing specific, but like anything expressive artistically. I'm really into public access stuff, very indie comics. I got my hands on Arcrum comics when I was little. It was like accidentally shuffled into a bunch of Mad magazines, and I stole one from school. At least not appropriate remotely for me, but I loved it. And then Mad magazine, a lot of I appreciate stuff that is very expressive, but also I appreciate stuff that's very absurd and slapstick and just over the top. And I think that kind of pushed me into who I am. I like really abstract stuff too. I like Alejandro Jodorowsky's work, like El Topo and The Holy Mountain, Santa Sangre. I really like David Lynch's work. I like a lot of movies. I'm a huge fan also of just like campy 80s movies. Anything from the 80s movies wise is usually quite entertaining. Even the bad stuff, or especially the bad stuff. I wouldn't even consider it bad at this point compared to what's out now. But all those things kind of pushed me into who I am, I think.
Cool. All right, you heard it here first, listeners.
Oh, comics like The Max and Lobo. Those are my two favorite comics growing up.
Cool. Anyway, you heard it here first. All modern culture sucks, says Edmund McMillen. It calls for a return to 90s
I don't think
and 80s.
modern music doesn't suck. Modern television doesn't suck.
But movies are not up to it.
Movies are not that great right now. I think TV is actually a lot better. Music is great. You know where to go and find it for the most part.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
The market is so fragmented.
Yeah.
All right. WVO Quine submitted 5 questions, so I guess the first 2 are linked, so I'll read them both together. It says, what is a particular game design decision that you think Spelunky did better than Binding of Isaac that you would like to have put in Binding of Isaac, and what is a particular game design decision that you think Binding of Isaac did better than Spelunky and that you would have liked to see in Spelunky?
Well, the things that I would like to do would be more along the lines of like, I felt like Spelunky is more skill based than Isaac, and Isaac is more luck based than Spelunky. Originally when designing it, that was something that I looked at as a negative, and I didn't really like that it was so random, so extra random, Binding of Isaac. Arguably Spelunky, you could just randomly get killed too, but I feel like there's just more skill involved in Spelunky. And I viewed that as a negative for the Binding of Isaac and something that I wish I could have fixed. But over time, you start to realize that one of the reasons why people really like Isaac is that random chance of like getting some sort of infinite combo or even just getting screwed over completely. It's actually something that people enjoy. It's more it's random. Sometimes you want to win and sometimes you lose. Like it's just like a lottery ticket. But there is of course skill involved. Like somebody who has just played for the first time, it's going to be almost impossible for them to just get super lucky and make it all the way to the end right away. But that's definitely something I think I was internally at war with, like feeling like I could have made the game better if I would have made it more skill based. But in hindsight and watching and seeing how people play the game, I've learned to accept the fact that this is how Isaac is and this is how people like it. So I'm not going to something I'm not going to really mess up in Rebirth. There are, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the same argument for what's wrong and what's right, because maybe it is better in some ways that Isaac is random in that way, and you can just luck out and have some insane stuff. I mean, you still can get the jetpack in Spelunky, and that almost guarantees, I mean, at least most people that are pretty skilled, if you get the jetpack early on, you're going to be getting to the end.
That's true.
But, I don't know. I mean, I love Spelunky so much. It's just, I think it's just a more well-rounded type of game, or more of a game that I like. I like it more than Binding of Isaac, so.
I like Binding of Isaac a lot more than I like Spelunky.
Yeah, you're a Spelunky hater.
This is a long-running argument between Justin and myself.
Yeah, whereas I like both games a lot.
I have a design for, Tommy and I have a design for a game that's kind of similar to Spelunky in terms of action and skill base and stuff like that we would like to do, hopefully maybe next year. And that will be more of an analyzation of exactly what I feel like could be improved upon in terms of that genre of action platform or roguelike.
Yeah, and I think Isaac definitely has a skill aspect to it. I'm constantly in an argument when I'm playing that game with my friend, because if I see the dead cat, I will almost always take it, and he's just said, no, dead cat is basically death. If you take it, you're just going to lose.
And it's one of those items where that is an argument. It's a valid argument. Like, people who know how to use and especially exploit the dead cat can just roll with it and really do really well.
Right.
And people who know how to pick up the dead cat because they know how to get the other pieces of the cat and eventually become Guppy.
Right.
That's another thing too. But
Guppy is adorable, by the way. I saw that picture that you put up a couple days ago.
Oh, with a baby
Guppy. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, Guppy's a lot bigger now. He's getting old. I think he's like almost 12. But that's something design-wise that I really like about the game. I get a lot of emails and people suggesting that, like, you need to remove this item and you need to make this item better and this item whatever. And I try my best to have, like, the items that are more wild card items, like the dead cat or whatever. I try to balance it so it's like, it's got two sides to it. You know, there's a
right.
con to it.
Upside and a downside.
Yeah, and you can exploit either side.
Right.
Right. Sometimes I try to, like, when I put in something like Mom's Knife, right, I always make a counterbalance with something like the Lemon Mishap. Like, there's got to be some sort of counterpart to something that's super OP to something that's not. And I do the same thing with the pill. There's always a counterpart for, like, bad trip versus, full health or whatever. Like, there's always an opposite. Luck down, luck up, whatever. But right. I try my best to do that, and then the random generator just goes, and it just does what it does. But in Rebirth, I focus more on tier effects that have pros and cons, like stuff that I've shown, like the tiny planet or whatever that makes your tiers revolve around you in a circle. Like it raises your range like crazy and raises other things too, and makes you have like spectral shots. But then it kind of messes up how you play, and you've got to play differently. But there are so many ways to exploit it and make it totally crazy. But you've got to think about it. So it becomes like, okay, now I've got to deal with this pro and con, and how am I going to do this? And I get to play it up more and really push it into people's faces, because I'm going to do a whole shitload more challenges that are very specific with these kind of setups that are both negative and positive. And it's kind of like a puzzle. Like, now I've got to beat the game with this odd, like, Ipecac mirror setup.
Right. So is I guess a question along those lines. So something like Epic Fetus, which is, if you get it, you're probably just going to win the game.
Yeah.
Are those going to be are you going to see larger downsides on those in the new ones to sort of give them more of that upside downside thing, or is that just going to stay?
I mean, Epic Fetus is quite rare, and with the introduction of like 150 plus new items, it gets way more rare.
Right.
And then I think it's also specific to a secret room. I'm not too sure about that. Might not. But
I think I've seen it in a. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
So since the pools are bigger, everything changes, and everything gets rebalanced. But I can tell you right now, like I'd say we have about 80 of the items completely implemented right now, and I've tested them. They upload like another 20 to 30 every week, and going that way, kind of see how they are. I can already find exploits for things, which of course stay in, because when exploits are like combinations of specific items, when you have more than like 300 and something items in the game, you just go with it, because like, what are the chances either way? And if you get those chances and you got to figure out how to exploit these items, then just go for it. But
that actually leads into the next question, which are, what combination of power-ups in Binding of Isaac most surprised you with their synergy or coolness factor, and did you design any items primarily to make a cool combo with another existing item?
I would say I would say half of the new items are almost support items with some of the old items that my first go-to thing before they started implementing new items was, I want all the old items to stack as much as possible. Like, I want to see, there's a lot of things that affect tiers. Like, the only thing before that really affected tiers was the Wiggle Worm. Now there's a whole set of worm items, which are actually trinkets. Wiggle Worm has been moved down from like an actual item into a trinket. And there's a whole set of these different worm types that change how your shots move. And there's also at least like 15 new tier type items that really change how you shoot. So I wanted to make sure that all laser items could be affected, which meant making dynamic lasers like...
Yeah, I saw that.
Like Raiden. It's totally ripped from how they did it in Raiden too. These homing laser type things. And same things with like bombs, like Dr. Fetus and stuff. Like, if you have Dr. Fetus and I believe it's the Parasite, whenever your bombs blow up, they turn into smaller bombs that like blow up. Right? Stuff like that, like as much combo as possible. And right now they're working on Mom's Knife combos, and hopefully be able to upload a GIF of that to showcase that. A lot of these are super rare OP combos, because of the chances of you getting some of these crazy items after the other, because it actually lowers internally your chance of getting these other rare items once you've acquired one, but it's still there. If you can do it, it gets really, really out of control, which is always fun to see. And especially like giant tiers that cover the screen and stuff like that. You just kind of want that stuff. But yes, going in, definitely I'm more aware of item combos. Of course, some still surprise me when I'm testing, which is awesome. And I'm also very aware of different ways to exploit certain things and certain items and certain things in the game, because I know that people like that, and I like it too. And I've designed around a lot of these kind of, in quotes, bugs, which are, have turned into features.
All right. And his last question is, do you think that there is a canonical story of Isaac's life either hidden in the game or that you have in mind that can't be recovered for the game, or are there multiple inconsistent stories that all have equal claim to being the story of Isaac's life, or is asking for the story of his life missing the point?
So the easy way would be saying that looking for a specific story would be missing the point, but this is a common question, and a lot of people still don't, to this day, understand what I mean when I say this, that there is a definitive story in my head, which I believe is clear in the game, of the surface level story of Isaac, which is happening in the game. But there's all these parallel stories that are happening in different perspectives, if you will. Because we're viewing things, from afar. We're not viewing things really from the perspective of Isaac. We are viewing Isaac's situation, and Isaac is showing us his perspective, but we're also getting a bigger perspective on what's happening in the game. And then there's an even bigger perspective of what this is actually, an analogy of what's the big picture here about, like, what does this all mean together. And when they all kind of intertwine, it just becomes this confusing mess that doesn't make sense. And in a way, it kind of shouldn't, because it's being told in this gray zone. Like, it's not a black and white answer. Like, I can't just give you an answer like, oh, this is the story of the Binding of Isaac, this is the story. It's just not, it's not this black and white story. It's more of this many different perspectives and intertwining storylines through different perspectives depending on how you view the story. And there's going to be a whole new perspective on the whole game in Rebirth, which will probably make things more clear for some and more confusing for others. But
he's gonna wake up and it was all a dream, and then it was all, and then it's gonna zoom out and it all happened inside of a snow globe.
Yeah, it's gonna pull 302.
Yep. All right. Next question. Hot Stuff asks, if you could dive into Edmund's feelings around this, and then he provides a link. He'd been interested to hear about that, and it links to a post you made on your blog where you say that the current indie gaming scene has lost sight on what its foundation was. I'll put the link in the chat for you so you can look at it. He says that it looks like this post came out of the indie custom cube controversy, but he wants to know if maybe there's a little more to it, and if you could elaborate on what you were talking about when you made this post.
Wait, 1 sec, I have to scroll down. Like, in the chat.
You have to scroll down the giant code block that Gordon put in the chat.
Blah, 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 foundation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's not really indie cube focus. It's more of a big picture thing. The hard thing about, the internet in general and all this stupid stuff, that, the celebritizing of people and giving them more power than they, should have. My opinions don't really matter. But, hey, people ask...
Full disclosure, Hot Stuff is also an indie dev that works full-time on video games, so
okay.
I think that's why he was asking that.
So, what I'm getting at when I usually say that the indie scene has lost sight of what it used to be, and as much as I'm trying my best not to sound like some old curmudgeon man, which is hard for me to do at this point, because I feel like I'm becoming that. But, I feel like people have lost sight of the fact that we make video games in their art, and that's what the foundation of what everything is. I think people get a little too focused on whatever kind of social campaign they're on. Like, you go to GDC right now. One of the reasons why I don't go to GDC, before you go to GDC, and there's all these bullshit talks about monetization and how to, make $1 million off of your dumb video game and whatever else, and it's all just like, it's a bunch of like those who can't teach situation where, like, I don't want advice from somebody who hasn't really done much, or advice from somebody who made one game and then, was able to exploit people with some sort of business decision. And, I'm not in this to to just be rich. I'm in this because I'm an artist and this is what I do. This is my chosen medium to express myself and have fun with what I'm doing. And I feel like the indie scene has become very much more of a scene. It's become an attitude, and it's become this kind of weird, it becomes like this avenue to talk about a bunch of social issues that could be much better talked about via a video game, like via your chosen art form. And it just bugs me. Like, it's just like, I don't care what, I just don't care, I guess. Like, it just becomes more and more about these personal issues that people seem to have and they want to rant about or whatever else, and it gets further and further away from art and games. And it's just not something I dig. And there's another side to it too, of course, like, back in the day, like, when I started making indie games in, like, 2002, 2003, when I'm actually making indie games, and I called them that, and I didn't even know they were called that until my first GDC in 2003. They were quite literally a handful of people making indie games. It was, less than 100. Like, very, 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 very few. And we all kind of knew each other, and everybody submitted their games to the IGF and whatever else. And since there were so few people, there was a lot more acceptance of the fact that we're all different, and we're all getting along because we're all making the same thing. But the more a scene grows, the more pods form, and people's opinions get more and more extreme, and then it's just human nature to, like, segregate yourself and then point the finger at the enemy and then attack. And you get a lot of these indies that are just talking shit about each other, and, your game's not a game, or you can't say this in your game, or you shouldn't make money off of your games, or whatever. Like, everybody's coming from some sort of different perspective, and they're all validated by other people who also share their same feelings, and then they just push further and further out, because it's mind-blowing, because we're all fucking nerds. We're all outcasts. This is why we're doing this. Like, this is why we're doing this. And we're so similar to each other. Yet, you get a bunch of people around, and the more people that build, the more pods form, and the more segregated it gets, and it's just natural segregation, where you just have all these people who, they want to point the finger, because they want to be like, things would be better if these people weren't here, and things would be better if this was like this, and this was like this, and then they get validated by everybody else who shares their opinion. And it just becomes a social circle jerk of insanity, and it gets even like it gets even worse, the fact that most of the stuff is done on the internet, so you can't actually, like, read somebody's face or voice. You can't hear their expression. Like, if I joke about something, you can't hear in my voice that I'm joking when I'm typing on the internet, and that just causes problems, period. But yeah, it's kind of a clusterfuck. I just don't really it just seems like it has nothing to do with making games. It's just getting further and further away from making games. And it's more about, like, talking about whatever social issue you want to talk about, not through games, or the industry, or making money. And it's just kind of like, I didn't get into this for any of that. And if I want to say something, which I of course I say stuff, but I try my best to say it via my game, because that's what I do. And I kind of wish we would see more of that.
All right.
Can't we all just get along?
That was a very long and interesting answer. I think he'll probably be very satisfied with that.
So I do hate coming off like a jaded, grumpy dick.
I mean, I know how long you've been around, because I remember when you were just selling, like, a CD on your website that was, here's some stuff I've made.
Yeah.
It's got, like, comics and some music and a couple games on it. That was a long time ago.
I will say I don't care as much as I may appear to care. Like, I'm only saying this stuff because I'm being asked, and people like that.
Right, no, it's good.
This isn't something that is rattling around in my brain as much as most might assume, but, like, that's why I just stay home and work, Yeah.
All right. Semichdu asks 2 questions. First is, I don't want spoilers, but do you have any hints about new characters or new areas in Rebirth?
Yes, there are quite a few new characters, and there are new areas. There's a lot of... I can't say anything, of course, because all the new areas are very secret areas.
Right.
I have confirmed that there will be a parallel chapter to the chest beyond Satan. What that is, who knows? What's in it, who knows? But it's definitely going to be there. That's something that I wanted to do from the beginning, which I wasn't able to do due to Flash limitations. But and there's just going to be a lot of secret stuff.
Okay, let's see if we can figure it out. What is if the opposite of Satan's level is heaven? What is the opposite of a wooden chest?
Skeleton chest.
Okay, there.
Chest made of butts.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Closer.
Literally Isaac's butt.
A chest that's not actually a chest, but a monster.
You're inside of Isaac's chest.
Yeah.
All right. And his second question is, I know you ran into issues with attempting to get Isaac on the 3DS with Nintendo due to objections to content. Have there been any issues at all with Sony on the PS4/Vita versions?
Oh, none at all. They basically said that there's some stuff that, like, I've been working on, secretly that is, I'm sure you're familiar with some of my older work. There's a game I did called The C Word, and there's a game I'm working on now which is not literally close to that game, but content-wise is closer to that game than other stuff that I've worked on as far as controversy and adult themes. And I just, for shits and giggles, kind of threw it at Sony because I had contacts with them, and I said, well, you publish something like this? And they were like, yes! So I'm pretty sure everything's fine when it comes to Isaac. They're fine with whatever. The thing is like, even Nintendo, like, initially when we said, do you think this is going to be a problem? They were like, as long as you don't get an AO, we're fine. Like, we publish anything that's not AO. And we're like, all right, great. And we kind of went with it, and it kind of moved its way up the ranks, and eventually it hit a wall, and the wall had a lot to do with some stuff that they agreed to internally eons ago, when it comes to religious content, which I believe is more specifically Christian religious content that could possibly be looked at as negative. I mean, they were the ones that edited out that, I believe it was like a Muslim chant or something that was in The Legend of Zelda, because to avoid controversy. So they really, like, don't want to offend any religious people, for whatever personal reasons they have. And, it sucks. It sucks that that's a kind of a barrier for us, but there's a possibility that the barrier can drop, and they can kind of change things over time. It's an old rule they have, so you never know. And we're gonna keep pushing and pushing, and you'd be surprised how many people at Nintendo really, really, really love Isaac and really want to see it on the system. It's just one of those situations.
That rule goes way back too, because if you look at Final Fantasy 1, all of the priest dudes had bishop hats with crosses on them.
Mm-hmm.
And when that came to North America, they redrew all of those sprites and called them clerics or something else instead.
Yeah.
Oddly, in the first Zelda, Link's shield still has a cross on it. Like, they didn't edit that out.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
And then our last question from the listeners is from Phil Royer via the question submission form on the website, so it's good to see that that's getting used. And he asks, what are your long-term goals? More games or experimenting with other mediums?
Long-term goals. I mean, I don't really have super long-term goals. I hope I have a few games I want to do next year, and hopefully continue. I have a bunch of games on the back burner design-wise that I would like to do before I die. I guess that's long-term, hopefully. As far as other things, I've been playing around with a card game that I've been messing with, which is not at all close to the card games I play. It's more of like a little kid's game, but it was fun to design on paper. It was fun to design outside of video games and design a game where I could do everything and didn't have to worry about it. And I've also been dabbling back in comics a bit too, whenever it kind of moves me. And I did some comics for a friend of mine for something he's doing, which I think will come out soon, which was nice. A nice break from what I'm doing. And And I'm writing a lot more. Mewgenics has me writing a shitload. Even though it is a game, it's been fun to write actual dialogue and stuff like that, and also not fun.
Yeah, well, you say before you die, but based on the things I've read over the past day, I'm pretty sure that you're going to be committing suicide within the next 24 hours.
I will. And you're all coming with me after.
Sweet. Well, it'll be a real dead man's party, right?
Yeah. I mean, we will be burning in the fiery hells in the best ways possible.
Sweet. All right, so those are all the listener questions.
Hey, you missed Phoenix Fire Rising's question.
Oh, I didn't think that was a real question, because I could tell you the answer to that one. Phoenix Fire Rising asked, when is Rebirth coming out?
Yeah, when it's finished, it'll be out.
Yeah,
I mean, the funny thing is, if I knew, you'd fucking know. Like, I hope to God, like, that I wouldn't be doing my job, as far as trying to sell my wares, if I knew that the release date was coming up, and I was just like, oh, well, I'm gonna just shoot myself in the foot and not let anybody know.
You should release exactly one copy of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for $5 million like the Wu-Tang Clan.
I saw that.
Yeah. But, again, breaking news, you heard it here first. Ed McMillen, peddling wares.
Yeah, my wares.
Also, yep, maybe some cracks along with those.
That's wares with a Z.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the joke. Thank you for pointing out the joke. It's much funnier now. So now that's all of the questions from the listeners. Thanks for keeping me honest, Gord. So I guess from me, I was thinking about what questions I could ask you that would be interesting for you to answer, sort of in a post indie game, the movie context. Which is tough because you spoke so much about your process, specifically about Meat Boy in that film. So I haven't fully collected myself yet. So if anybody else wants to ask first to give me a little more time, they should go for it. Otherwise, I'll just start saying stuff, and we've seen how that turns out.
That turns out pretty well overall. Just when you start rambling, it actually works out. Like,
okay, thanks for the support, guys.
Good questions do come out.
Okay, so I guess that movie ended with Isaac. I haven't watched the extended stuff, so I don't know what you talked about in that.
I talked about it.
So, okay, well then, okay. First I want to know, as I said earlier in the show, I've been going back and playing through the Basement collection, the segments of it that I'd ever finished. I had finished originally Meat Boy when it was on Newgrounds, and I finished the Aether and maybe one more, but I don't remember. So yesterday, 2 days ago, I spent a lot of time playing Spewer, and Spewer is hard in the later levels. But sort of, yeah, from that collection, what would you say are sort of the fundamental lessons that you learned as a designer that you then carried forward into your more recent stuff like Meat Boy? Would you be able to point, like, when making Aether, I learned this, or when making Triachnid, I learned this?
I'd say, well, of course, Meat Boy, Time fucking Spewer are like 3 tile-based platformer type games that I learned a great deal when it comes to just building levels and level progression and difficulty progression and teaching the player how to do things without a lot of text and mostly through doing instead of, me telling them what to do. It definitely was a great, training for Meat Boy. Like, I did those, right before Meat Boy. And, I learned a lot from every single game, and I kind of, refined it as I went, like with Track, and I was trying to do something more emotional and trying to play with colors and story and less with dialogue and more with music and the just the tone and everything in the game, and seeing like what I could do. Could I like make somebody feel attached to this thing that they have to physically move around? And if I could I get them also to feel like attached to the thing that this thing's supposed to be taking care of? And just kind of like, I was just learning how to express different things with the medium, and then like moving on to something like Coil, I was trying to do the same thing more abstractly, like very abstract storytelling and abstract gameplay that kind of all made some sense to something, to me at least. But I didn't really execute it as well as I wanted, and I think I learned, I was able to speak more clearly through a game like Timefuck later on, where like I feel like a lot of the imagery and the story and stuff, I was trying to basically build off of the stuff that I'd done previously, and I felt like I did it well in Timefuck. That was like the last game that I released before Meat Boy, and I think the best of the games in the pack. And I just learned a lot from each of them. I mean, you learn a great deal from making lots of games, and you get better as you go, and you definitely learn from your mistakes, and then you take the things that you did well, and you just play with them more, and you get better. And that's kind of I think that's what it's supposed to show anyway, like my progression as an artist. And I kind of put that out to try to be a companion piece to the movie, as well as give people some perspective that I didn't just fucking fall out of the sky and get an Xbox Live deal, and that you have to pay your dues in order to, achieve something. Like, I that's 10 years of work before I got that deal.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you think that one's the strongest, because I think out of all of them, I thought I liked Aether. I thought Aether had the most resonance for me, and that one had the least at it for me. So
I made it in 14 days. It was it was an emotional wreck through the whole thing. I think I did a great job with it, but it's for me, it's not as fully realized as Timefuck, and I feel like I could go back and kind of make it better if I wanted to ever make a full game of that. But I feel Timefuck just is one of a few games I can look back on and feel like that's good, and I couldn't do it better.
All right, so I guess that sort of leads into the next question I had, which is, that game sort of is much more systems driven than Aether, I would say, and a lot of you seem to be really interested in playing around with systems in games. Like, all of your games are experimenting with systems in different ways, and I'm not sure how familiar you are sort of with in games criticism, the debate between lidology and narrative. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so there is this among academics who study games, because those people do exist. There are these two camps, and one camp says that the content of a game, whether it's narrative or visual, is irrelevant. The most important thing in a game are the systems and the rules of play.
Yeah.
And the other camp says, no, narrative is important, just like it would be in a film or a book.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would...
Well, I think they are both completely correct.
Right.
And
so
I try my best. I think, and I do understand those two black and white extremes, and why they would argue, because they're kind of opposites in a way. But the beauty of video games is the marriage of those two things. The beauty of video games in general, like in something like Isaac, where I have a rough story that's traditional, kind of, like told through, moving pictures and some dialogue. But it also explores a lot of other things via what you're doing. The fact that you're shooting your tears and you're fighting off these monsters that are reminiscent of you in this endless, sprawling, randomly generated environment that every time is different, much like a child would be imagining these things. And you're using your and it's every little thing in Isaac, even mechanic-wise, I try my best to make sense with what I'm trying to say, and what I'm trying to do. And like Aether was the same thing too, like the way things sway, the pace of everything. It was meticulously done in a way that felt like swimmingly dreamy, like however I could try to represent how a dream felt, with movement and colors or lack thereof, and just the tone and the music and, emptiness and everything else. I try my best to complement, much like a musician would, you're writing a song that you want to say this with. Your words say these things, but the tone of your voice also says more, and the way the music sounds makes you feel a certain way. On a technical level, it's still technical. You're still technically playing music that has a structure to it that is technical. But it's this marriage of the two that makes it, beautiful, and makes it art, and makes it, go beyond a traditional art form of somebody making a bunch of cutscenes that tell a story and then you just kill guys in between. I try my best to do this, and I don't think every single game needs all that. I'm a fan of just doing crazy, wacky shit that just has some really cool gameplay element to it, and the story is just throwaway and it doesn't mean anything at all. That's fine. Nothing wrong with any of those things, but for most games, I try my best to express myself through both sides and kind of tie them together.
So do you think, I guess, having been in the indie game scene, as you called it, for a long time now, that people have become somewhat more sophisticated in the way that they tell stories through games? If you look at something like Gone Home from last year, or Bioshock even, versus where games were when you started, how would you say that sort of things have changed in terms of narrative and how stories are communicated?
I think things have, of course, gone to the extreme, and it's hard not to, especially in the mainstream, push out to the edges and make, something like Bioshock where, it is more traditional storytelling. And it's, kind of like you're just being pushed through a movie for the most part. There are some elements that you have some choice in, and that's cool and everything else. But I personally appreciate games more like Shadow of the Colossus or something like that, where a lot of what's happening is kind of left up to interpretation and expressed through mood and theme and the epicness of what you're doing and how it makes you feel. But it's not to say the latter isn't better or whatever, but I don't know. Yeah, it's grown up. Things are growing up. Sometimes in bad ways, sometimes in good ways. And I think eventually video games will just find their voice and get better and better and better at doing many different things. It's still in its infancy, This art form's only been around for 30 years or whatever, barely. And we're still just finding out our vocabulary, I guess.
All right, so someone then, as a thought experiment, makes you the king of video games, and you get to say, this is the direction that games are going to go in. What direction do you see that being?
Well, I'd be a bad dictator. If I had control or whatever, I wouldn't be good because
unlimited power.
Because I wouldn't want one thing, and it wouldn't be I don't appreciate Call of Duty or whatever else is story mode. I think it's throwaway and whatever. But who am I to say? I'm not the opinions of the people. I'm just one person. So, I'm the kind of person who's well, things might not be going in all the directions that I'd like, but I think in the end they're going to be just fine. And I think it's going to work itself out. And I think we're progressing towards something better and better. You always take 2 steps forward and 1 step back with any kind of progression. And who am I to say, this sucks and this is worthless and you shouldn't do it? I might be wrong. So I just say let it progress naturally, and we'll see. That's what I would do as king. I would say just fucking deal with it.
Laissez-faire dictatorship.
Sure.
So I guess are there any other game studios or games recently that you have sort of really been blown away by, or that have struck you as being really interesting or neat in ways that you hadn't really thought about games before? Or are you just sort of, I know you said you don't play a lot of games right now.
I am bad recently when it comes to games. I'm not super current, so I'm not great on what's happened this year so far. And I do play a lot of games though. But there have been a lot of games in the past decade that I feel like have definitely made some progress, and I hold close as far as just being really innovative and really. I appreciate games that have a new perspective. Show me something that I haven't really seen before. Not just gameplay-wise, but just overall theme. That's why, like, I've done, like, a lot of talks at UCSC or whatever, and the kids will be like, hey, I want to make this game. What is there anything I should avoid theme-wise or whatever? And we usually say just, like, if you got a game and it's a shooter, don't put it in space. Like, just stop. Like, just if you're working on something and you've got this really awesome mechanic you want to use, don't just go straight to zombies or space or whatever else, which might be smart if you want to make money, right? Because people, I guess, like those things. But I'm a personal believer of people not liking what they don't know that they want even more than. And I'd like to think that was proven with Isaac. I mean, it's basically gone triple platinum at this point, so I did something right, even though it's this video game about a naked child.
Yeah, I mean, I know why it appealed to me, because I love Zelda.
Yeah.
And this was a way to play Zelda dungeons forever.
Yeah, randomly generated dungeon roguelike that just forces you to be a naked crying child. But yeah, like I want to see new and interesting things. Like, and I'm down with whatever is new and interesting out there. And I can even appreciate stuff that I don't really like. Like, I didn't really like On Home that much, but I totally appreciate it. Totally appreciate it. Like,
gasps from the audience.
All the Tale of Tales games and stuff. Like, I'm not a super fan of those games, but totally down with that. Like, totally think it's great and want more of it. Just because it's good to have that kind of extra perspective on things. Like, it's good to have options. It's good to have wild cards and all that sort of stuff, too.
So you must have really loved Flappy Bird.
I didn't actually play it, but I do know... I'm sorry. My wife is messaging me, even though she's sitting behind me.
Hello!
Flappy Birds. Yeah, no, Flappy Bird, I guess. I gotta get in contact with the guy. I have a question for him, actually.
Yeah, I think he is talking to people now. He's no longer hiding.
Yep.
I think he did an interview with Rolling Stone recently, so...
Awesome.
So he's totally mainstream now. He's sold out now that he's talking to Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
Now that he sold Flappy Bird to Oculus Rift.
Yeah. Now that you're coming soon, Angry Bird's Flappy Bird.
Angry Flappy Bird.
Man, I was really disappointed. This is a total tangent, but the Rovio guys put out a trailer a couple weeks ago it looked like a trailer for Dark Souls until the helmet opened up and it was a Flappy Bird inside, or it was an Angry Bird inside. And I was so hoping that it would be Dark Souls Angry Birds, because I wanted to see how they would pull that off. And it just isn't. It's something else, but my disappointment was palpable. Alright, dude, okay, so there, I rambled for a while. Guys, are you happy? You guys should talk too. Yeah, this is how it's going to be.
Gonna use my mouth for words.
So Justin's the insightful one with important questions about the industry.
The hard-hitting questions about the industry.
Yeah.
It's because, so, I don't know if I call them hard-hitting.
No, fine.
I think that most of them are sort of softballs. But
I'm down with hard hitting. You can hit me as hard as you want. I can take it.
Okay. Hard-hitting question. Why was Gish so terrible?
Gish was so terrible because it was my first game.
No. I am joking. I actually did not like Gish, but I don't think it was terrible. Just like you also.
I don't think it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be Gish's 10-year anniversary in May.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was brought to my attention by a fan. I've completely forgotten about that whole experience. But it was like the first game I made and worked on for an extended period of time to sell in an attempt to sell. But I'll tell you right now, to show you how far things have come in the indie world, that game was considered the best then.
I know. I remember. I saw it. No, because I
the shit. And everybody loved
because I didn't like it, and then I saw, oh wow, this is like a super popular award-winning game. I must be wrong about everything. Not just games, but everything.
It even broke my brain too to find out that I found out recently because I got in touch with our business guy from back in the day, and I was like, hey, can you tell me how many copies Gish sold before it got on Steam, like 5 years after it released initially off of our website? And I was just wondering, because I have no clue how many copies it sold, and I was hoping that it at least had gone gold, which is like 500,000 copies, just so I could say, because I have all these like, fake platinum awards on my wall and stuff. Other awards, so. When the game goes platinum or gold or whatever, I'll make like a little plaque, and I was wondering if Gish did. I found out that in the first 5 years, Gish sold almost 5,000 copies.
Wow.
Nice.
Now, that's how much things have changed. Now, it's a lot more.
That's how many copies.
It's a lot more than that on Steam, but I don't actually have a number because I can't seem to log in with my old account. But to put it into perspective, The Binding of Isaac has sold about 3 million copies in the past couple years. So, that's how things have changed. Like, things have changed so drastically. Like, the scene and indie games and the respect for indie games and all this stuff has gotten that much different. Like, Gish was the game to buy of 2003, and I thought everybody bought it. Nope, that's 5,000 people back then. 5,000 people over the course of 5 years. And now we've got Steam, and a game about child abuse sells 3 million copies.
Yeah. I do like seeing Gish in other stuff. I liked him in Meat Boy. I liked him in
characters.
Isaac.
I'm happy with the characters. Like, Gish and the Viscerin sisters are the two of my favorite character designs from way back when that I still am happy with referencing now at random times because I like the way they look.
So is Gish related to the world of Goo Balls?
You mean are the world of Goo Balls related to Gish?
Yeah, are they the same
Actually,
family or?
I know Kyle, and we've known each other for a while, and I did ask him because World of Goo is actually a combination of Bridge Builder and Gish, and he was a fan of both of those games, and never realized that they were both programmed by the same person.
Oh wow!
Which is Alex Austin, the guy I worked on Gish with. Because I found out about him through his work on Bridge Builder, his bridge building games. So yeah, there is kind of like a weird marriage there. I think both Gish and Bridge Builder kind of helped World of Goo get made, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. So I guess my question was not literal. It was are they the same species? But that works too.
Yeah. Well, that answer would just been I'd have probably made a fart noise instead.
But see, that's what our podcast thrives on. Just making fart noises with our mouth.
Yeah.
So there, that was my hard-hitting question. Why does Gish suck?
Blame Alex! What'd you ask?
All right. All right, tell you what. If you can get him on the phone with me, I will also ask him.
I don't have his number.
Well,
sorry.
Okay. Well, too late. Would you be interested in redoing Gish or making another Gish game sort of with your more modern design sensibilities?
Fun fact. Here's a couple fun facts.
Okay, I'm not. So you don't own the rights to it, right?
Yeah. Well, the first fun fact was that I was remaking Gish for Xbox Live initially with Alex Austin and Tommy Reffinis, but that plan fell through miserably, and that's when the company split and I stopped working with Alex. And when I stopped working with Alex, Tommy was actually living in the office. He was just sleeping in our office. So he had to come home with me, and he ended up just, living with us for a month. And that was when we were like, okay, let's actually just flip this. And because Microsoft just wanted to work with me and whatever I was working on. And I thought Gish would be just the best thing to do, because that was my, biggest game. But it was still around the time where I'd put out the original Flash game, Meat Boy. We were kind of like, well, we're working on this Meat Boy game. How about we just do this? And the guy was totally down with it, and we were able to, just flip it over and kind of keep our relationship with Microsoft, even though we canned Gish. So originally it was going to be Gish, and that's kind of how I started working with Tommy, because he was going to be helping with the console programming of the remake of Gish. In hindsight, I think that would have been a horrible game. I think it would have not done well. It was going to be greatly improved. A lot of the designs, especially the controls, were going to be greatly improved, but I don't think I could have done much more. There's only so much you can do with a physics-based environment, and sometimes things just get a little frustrating. And I don't foresee myself ever venturing ever back in. And as you mentioned, because I only own the rights to the characters, and when it comes to the game, Gish itself, like, we split it, that would mean I'd have to work with Alex again, and I don't think we've worked that well together again.
Oh.
All right. So I guess, was that, you said you were working with Microsoft. Wasn't Meat Boy originally supposed to be the Wii? Or was this concurrently, or?
It was around the same time when we were actually doing that. It kind of was both.
I was planning on buying the Wii version.
Yeah, well, we were planning on making it.
Did the Wii version's secret characters get moved over to the PC, or did you not even get that far?
Get that far. It got to the point where it was like, how can we even do this? Like, we kept emailing them and saying, like, are these strict limitations? And they were like, yep. Like, that's the file size. We're like, well, you could just do it in chunks and chapters and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's not going to work at all. That doesn't make sense. And we had to can it. But luckily by that time, like, the WiiWare sales were so horrible that we would be losing so much money in the deal either way if we would have.
Yeah. It's really interesting how Nintendo's completely flipped on that, and now they're just giving away Unity licenses to anyone who wants to develop for the Wii U.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's better to be open, you know. You gotta be kind of open to everything. But yeah, we actually kind of had both deals going around the same time, which is proof. There's proof in a contract with Microsoft because they basically said you can't do it on any other consoles other than the Wii, and that's why it's not on the PlayStation.
So I guess we have Meat Boy and then Super Meat Boy. So the next game will be Meat Boy 64.
Yeah,
right?
that was actually something it was a code name for. If we ever did do it, we were going to call it that. But
yeah, Meat Boy. And it would have to look like a N64 game.
Yeah, that'd be awful. That's definitely not gonna.
That would be great. Meat Boy's first foray into 3 dimensions.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up the same way Pixels hold up.
Didn't somebody do a 3D Meat Boy game recently or something like that? I thought I saw something.
A while back, I think a friend of Tommy's actually did like a weird little 3D Meat Boy game, which it doesn't really work in 3D.
Yeah. I was just thinking it would look just like Sonic does in 3D, right?
Yeah.
Really, really well.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. Yeah, man, N64 had good games, but it's so difficult to play them now because it looks just like your nose goblins on the screen.
Yeah, it's not. It'll be funny though because I assume actually in 10 years, once the kids that grew up with that look start making games and stuff, we're going to see a ton more, probably within the next 5 or 6 years, a ton more games like indie-wise that do reference that look. They'll probably look a little better, and there's probably it probably looks cool to some kids, I guess, still because it's retro.
I hope
think
not.
It looks god awful.
No, I hope not. I feel like that's a time of graphics best forgotten. Either go straight hand-drawn sprites or like modern realistic. And even modern realistic ages really quickly.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
whatever.
Well, you got to do something like if you're going in for something like that, you have to do something bold like Wind Waker that's timeless.
Right. No, I mean it won't matter in a couple of years anyway because it'll all be hyper realistic on our Oculus Rift, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way of the future.
Maggie was just talking to me about that with the different ways that people visualized these video game characters. And in Japan, Link was always this kid wandering around having adventures. But even on the box art in North America, he was this adult having these enormous challenges because in North America we like things to be badass. And so when Wind Waker came out, which was more or less the first game where they got to express that character in so much detail, he was this kid, and no one in North America really got it at first.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? People still don't get it, which is why Wind Waker HD bombed.
Man.
So
I honestly don't think that they improved on the way it looks. Some of those art choices don't make any damn sense in a cartoon world. I don't understand why they did them.
yeah. Well, also Wind Waker was the most poorly received console Zelda game because of the graphics. So that was the one they decided to remake for some reason. Like, I'm not sure that was the smartest business choice overall because there are a lot of people who still hate the graphics. I liked them. Whatever. I'm a sucker for Nintendo. I'm a sucker for anything that says Zelda on it. So.
Yep.
That made me forget what I was going to say.
You mean that?
Oh yeah, I was going to say
Sonic Dark Worlds game.
That looks silly, even though it has Zelda in it. But yeah, I was going to say that's similar with Kirby, right? Because if you look at the box art for Kirby in Japan, Kirby's happy and smiling, and on the North American box art, he's got angry eyes.
That's always the case.
So it's really interesting how marketing regionally works. So did Meat Boy, when it hit Japan, have like a happy chibi Meat Boy?
No, but I think Binding of Isaac is going to be, like, I keep hearing, because we're actually going to be releasing that overseas because Tyrone has some sort of fetish for anything Japanese. But I believe that the title doesn't translate well, so it'll actually translate to The Legend of Isaac, which is just as appropriate.
That's actually pretty sweet.
Huh. I wonder how in the Japanese translations of the Bible they translate that.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, Gord, that's your mission. Find a Japanese Bible when you're in Japan next. Next time you're in Japan,
okay.
Buy a Japanese Bible and find out how they say the Binding of Isaac in Japanese.
I can't reach one from here.
Oh, do you just have one in your house?
Not a Japanese one, though.
Well, then what good are you? All right. Well, I think that was the last joke I had on that subject. Is there anything that you are interested in talking about, and then with Mewgenics? I don't know a lot about Mewgenics because it's not out yet, so I haven't had a chance to play it.
Yeah.
Or have I? Dun dun.
Yeah, I can say that, the goal right now, we're crunching for packs, and we hope to show the first playable build of Mewgenics there, which should showcase the foundation of the game, which is the house and the cats, and some cat fight simulation, as well as some of the stores and furniture and all that good stuff, too. And we have made some pretty good progress recently, and it's pretty excited about it. It's the weirdest thing I've ever made. And as you say,
That's a bold claim.
I like to experiment with a lot of different, everything. Well, but what did you actually said it was like different systems, and this game has 1 million systems inside of it that are nothing like anything else I've done. And it's basically like Systems the game, which has been very daunting, but starting to really pay off. But yeah, weird. Weird, not when I say weird, I'm not necessarily saying thematically weird, which it is, very, but more in terms of the actual gameplay, what you're doing, and the structure of the game. It's something closer to Animal Crossing. It's, I guess, the only thing I can kind of compare it to, which is odd in itself, but it's just kind of going to be this really bizarre experience, which has, lots of different type of gameplay inside of it. But a lot of it's bizarro flavor and this weird fucking world with a bunch of weird people and a lot of weird cats.
Cool. Oh, I thought of another question that I wanted to ask. Something that you don't have in your games is multiplayer. All of your games are sort of single-player affairs.
I got something else. Fun fact. Something I don't have in my video games. Noses. Check it out.
Oh, bad.
I don't
never
think
even
there's
thought
noses
about
in
it.
almost any of my games. I'm pretty sure there are no noses. Mewgenics might be the first to feature noses, and they're only on adult cats. When cats are kittens, they do not have noses. They only have noses when they grow into adulthood, and even sometimes then they don't have noses.
Okay, please excuse me. I'm going to look through all of your art in the next 20 seconds to see if I can find a nose.
Yeah, so why do you hate noses so much?
I
that's a hard-hitting
they're
question.
Really insignificant. I think they make people's faces look ugly. If we didn't have noses, we'd look extra cute. We just got to make the eyes bigger.
All right. Well, that's your human genetics program.
Yeah. Let's breed that
That's
out.
the secret mode. Secret mode of Mewgenics is where you're breeding humans instead.
So this is why adult cats do have noses, because they're way less cute than kittens.
That's actually the reason.
Oh wow,
that is
great.
Well, it's the opposite reason of that, is that kittens should be cuter. And that's a whole system in itself, and a good example of the many systems. So when a cat is born, genetically, it has the genetics of its mother and father, depending on their recessive and dominant genes and randomness and mutation factor. But when it's a kitten, it's physically smaller, but to make it look more kitteny, the eyes are actually physically bigger. There is no nose, and the head is bigger. The head is much bigger than the body. When it grows up, the proportions are semi-random when it comes to the cat growing up. So there is a chance that your cat just grows up and is just full-on bigger. But most of the time, the body averages out. The body catches up to the head size. The eyes get a little more scaled, smaller, and it usually gets a nose, and it makes it look way more adult. Voices don't change yet, but they will.
I found some noses.
What?
I did it. I found some in the basement collection, the chest, image number 1, cerebral discharge. There are some noses.
That's not a game.
The basement collection is a collection of games.
Yeah, that's a drawing. I've drawn noses before, but yeah, I don't put them in my games.
So,
okay.
I have a question. In Mewgenics, on the scale of The Sims to Viva Pinata, how graphic is the cat sex?
Oh, it's very graphic. There's a lot of weird lines of I don't know. I have no fucking clue what's socially acceptable in any way when it comes to this. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, as an indie or me in general, I'm never ever thinking who am I marketing to and who wants to play my game? But then I do suddenly have the realization as I'm animating these different sexual positions for these cats, I'm thinking to myself, this might look like a game for little kids, and I don't know what's going on. So
Wait. With the different positions, can you buy them a copy of the Catma Sutra?
That's not it yet, but
okay.
It really depends on your cat's libido.
It's all right. We're gonna have a new generation of people who were who grew up being exposed to things that wasn't meant for their age group.
Yeah, I mean that's the recurring thing. That's what who I am. So maybe some 5-year-old kid's gonna play Mewgenics and see some cat with another cat and be like, I want to make video games.
I want to be a cat.
There are also cats. If the libido is really low, it signifies that they're really bad at it. So there's also animations for cats that are pretty bad at it.
Oh man.
Anyway, going back to multiplayer for a minute.
No, I like this tangent a lot.
No, but I wanted to know what because you don't have multiplayer in your games, and people got really excited when they heard that the Rebirth was going to have multiplayer.
Oh, I was so excited.
And then I think they were disappointed when they heard what that meant, and that it wasn't just 2 people on the screen at the same time. So I wanted to know sort of what your perspectives on multiplayer gaming is, and sort of.
It's something I want to venture into, and will be hopefully venturing into in future games. But not something that I've put a great deal of thought into just yet. I guess it's mostly because a lot of multiplayer games usually don't have much theme/story involved in them. That when the foundation is multiplayer, and it might be maybe harder for me to write around that. That could be it. I've tried my hand at a few different multiplayer games back in the day in Flash, which never happened because of the issues with latency and everything. There actually is one multiplayer game that I made called Host, which uses the host creatures that are in the Binding of Isaac. That's where they came from. And it was this kind of Smash Brothers insanity that I made in a few weeks with a friend of mine. But I'll jump back in. I mean, Tommy has expressed a lot of interest in making a multiplayer game and making more online features. One of the last things that he did before Mewgenics was Super Meat World, which ended in disaster. But while it was up, it was amazing, and the system he made for it was phenomenal, and it was a great way for everybody to share their levels and play the levels that they shared. And I know he really wants to do more stuff like that. So chances are, because he does and because I'm interested in it, that future games will feature some element of multiplayer. But when it comes to Isaac, online multiplayer is not going to happen unless we push the game back to next year. But I mean, maybe if there continues to be a lot of interest and people really dig the co-op stuff, or whatever else, we might maybe do an expansion next year that maybe has something, or maybe somebody will just write a way to, some sort of something, make it go online already. A lot of people,
Okay.
A lot of stuff.
Okay, let me paint you a picture. First-person shooter, 4 Isaacs. You have to get from a safe point A to safe point B within the basement, while avoiding hordes of enemies that are coming at you, based on the enemies in Binding of Isaac. And you call it Left 4 Isaac.
So I assume that the enemies are being controlled by another team of 4?
No, the enemies are controlled by an AI director.
Okay.
Although there are unique enemies that can be played in a multiplayer versus match.
Sounds great. A fun fact, actually, Tyrone and I were talking about back and forth about if we were to do some sort of multiplayer stuff with Isaac down the road, what could it be? And one of the designs that I kind of had on paper a while back was a kind of like versus dungeon editor type person, which would kind of like map out what the levels look like and controlled some of the monsters and the bosses and stuff like that in the game, which would be pretty cool. And
like Dungeon Keeper.
Yeah, and then shortly after that, like basically exactly what we had described was all over the news. I don't remember what it was called, but
yeah.
Well, I guess I'll play that game and see if it even is worth it. Worth doing later, and then we'll explore it.
Don't play the new Dungeon Keeper from EA.
Yeah, don't worry.
Because reasons. It's not a good game. I think the original just got given out for free by GOG in protest for the new one from EA being so bad.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
But yeah, I could see a multiplayer Isaac dungeon builder where you can make levels for your friends.
We'll see. I don't completely see it yet. It's an idea. And again, I made the mistake of mentioning an idea. So if this
yeah, you heard it here first.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Coming 2015. Multiplayer Isaac dungeon builder. Hey man, if Plants vs Zombies can turn into a first-person shooter, you can too.
Yeah,
it's the way of the future.
If EA buys it out from under me and somehow erases my name from it, and then does whatever they want with it, like they did with Plants vs Zombies, then it could happen.
Yeah, that was nuts. What, they bought it and then they fired the guys who made it the next day or something?
It was fucked. I'm good friends with the guy who made it, and it is fucked.
Yeah. It's just baffling.
Yeah.
And then they announced Plants vs. Zombies 2 the day after they fired them.
If only I could talk more about that. I should get off here soon, though, because my wife is going to get a divorce.
That's cool. We are also running up against our official time, so that sounds like a good place to end. So if people wanted to get in contact with us, how would they do that?
RedPagesPodcast.com.
Okay.
You can also get us on our Twitter at RedPagesPodcast, or on our email, theredpagespodcast@gmail.com.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/RedPagesPodcast. Or you could find us on iTunes and leave us a rating, because no one's done that yet, and we would love ratings, because those surface us in the new and notable rankings, and we'll get listeners that way.
Can you just rate yourself?
Oh yeah, we rated ourselves. But you need more than one for it to create an average.
There are 3 people here already.
Well, I don't know. Okay, I rated it. I don't know about these 2 jokers.
I don't know how to use
I don't know how to use iTunes.
Okay.
He's a team player.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I rated us 5 stars, but no, we totally don't deserve that. Give us what we deserve, not what we want you to give us.
Give us the hero that we need.
And if you wanted to find Edmund online, where would we find you?
You find me threatening suicide on Twitter. My name's not spelled right because somebody hacked my account a while back and then changed my name, and I could never get it again. So it has an extra N at the end. It's Edmund McMillen.
Lennon.
Hey, you just Google my name. Whatever, you'll find it. You'll find stuff. Just Google my name.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. All right. Any other ads, plugs? Oh, announcements. Next week, our guest is Zach Jick Johnson from Asymmetric Publications, makers of the fine online MMO click 'em up JRPG stick figure extravaganza Kingdom of Loathing. So submit questions for him. Yeah, right. No one's going to submit questions for him. He's way too easy to get into contact with and ask a question. So tune in next week for we're talking with Jick.
We can just read through the video games hot dog questions.
Yeah, he's got his own podcast where people ask him questions all the time. So don't expect to see anything from you guys this week. All right, that's all I got. Anybody else have anything else before we say goodbye to the listener mans? All right, I've been Justin.
I've been Gord.
I've been Paul.
I've been tortured for the past 2 hours.
Yep, sounds about right. Sounds about right. And this has been the Red Pages Podcast. Also, what is this huge link that you've put into the chat?
Image. That's yeah, it's an image somehow.
I don't know what happened to that, or why it stopped being a URL, or why it's so long.
Did you just copy it directly from Google?
Like, yeah.
You put in like a JPEG images, like full data in here. Like if you put this into a
compiler.
No, you can put it into some sort of weird HTML thing, and it'll come out as the image that you want. But yeah.
Weird. Okay.